I can't wait for them to stop their antics, frankly. They're interrupting iconic sporting events that, part of our history, tradition, and massively look forward to across the nation. And this, I absolutely condemn the way they go about their tactics.
How is Labour planning to tackle social mobility to improve the life chances of children, whatever their background? The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, thinks he has the answer, and it sounds surprisingly old-fashioned. Speak clearly and fluently and teach that skill at school. And we can speak to Sir Keir Starmer now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You want oracy, the ability to speak clearly and fluently, to be given priority at every level of a child's education in England. What would that actually mean in practice on a day-to-day basis, giving priority at every level? What would that mean?
It means ensuring that all of our children and young people can speak clearly, can express themselves, and are confident in their communications. We all know how brilliant it is when children are growing up and you see them beginning to express themselves. But where children can't do that or can't do that well or confidently, it massively holds them back in in their schools and their achievements, but also holds them back when they go into the workplace. Because I think you had Justine Greening on before, and she said something which is reflected in what businesses say to me, which is that what they need is sort of rounded individuals capable of being clear, communicating, and being confident in the expression of their views. And so, that's part of a wider review of the curriculum that we're proposing, which is part of the mission I'm setting out today. And that mission is really to break the link between where children and young people start in life and where they finish. Far too many of them have their futures determined more by what their parents earned than by their ability. And so this is what I'm trying to set out today, is the way that we would, after 5 or more years of a Labour government, change things so that that class ceiling was shattered.
There are some people getting in touch saying this is already happening at some schools. Speaking and listening has been on the curriculum for at least 10 years. Nothing new. Keir Starmer, what exactly will be different? That's Sue Player, a retired deputy head. I suppose what might be a more interesting question would be, what is the evidence to show that focusing on oracy actually does result in fairness, in equality of opportunity, and breaking the so-called class ceiling?
Well, firstly, I don't accept that this is being done everywhere. It is being done in some places. I accept that, but it's not being done everywhere. And, so for example, I want 500,000 more children to hit their early learning goals by 2030. That's a big ambition. And within that will be work on speech, on language, on confident communication, and carrying that on into schools. But it does make a big. There's piles of evidence that say that this is a game changer when it comes to children's progression. And we've got to face up to the fact, really, that when it comes to this question of the link between where you start in life when you finish, we're flatlining or going backwards, and by international comparisons, we're going down the league table. We've got to turn that around. That's about aspiration and opportunity for every child, of course, and their family. It's also about driving forward businesses and driving forward our economy. So the broad readout of reaction to what we're announcing today has been very, very supportive by those that join us in the ambition to break that link between where you start in life and where you finish.
Of course, and everyone has an idea about how you improve that path, especially for children who perhaps don't have the opportunities others do. Some people will say, well, actually abolishing tuition fees, which was a pledge that you made in your leadership campaign, that would ease that path.
Well, in relation to tuition fees, I think the current arrangement can't be justified. We want to bring in a fairer arrangement. But one of the things I'm going to be saying today is that we need a better balance between the route that takes us down, the academic route that takes us into university, which is great. I mean, I was the first in my family to go to university. I know what a change that can make. But the vocational technical skills, and for too long, we've had a sort of a mismatch where we've sort of said, academic route for my children, vocational route for your children. We've got to tackle that at Snobbery, in my view. I saw it so firsthand with my dad was a toolmaker, worked in a factory all his life. He was highly skilled, didn't go to university,
Mm.
and he felt all his life that he was looked down upon. I was the first in my family to go to university, and people sort of said, "Well, that's a good thing to do," and this is deep wired, and we've got to get to the heart of this and get the balance right.
Again, there are people have different views about what helps children who come from deprived backgrounds, children who are working class, adults who are working class who have affordability problems. I want to talk to you about ULEZ. This kind of ties into by-elections. Uxbridge, for example, also ties into affordability, which I think is one of the things
Yeah.
that you are talking about, an opportunity. Voters in Uxbridge are thought to be unhappy about ULEZ. Are you sticking to your support for the ULEZ scheme? Because you will know yourself that there are people who have told heart-wrenching stories, according to one Conservative, according to one MP, who are not able to afford to upgrade their cars or pay the £12.50 a day charge when the ULEZ is extended to Outer London in August. Do you support it?
I do understand those concerns. I really do. And Danny Bills, who's the Labour candidate in Uxbridge, has been clear on his position in terms of calling for a review and sticking up for what he hopes will be his constituents. But I mean, I do think it's important just to take a step back. There is a legal requirement to deal with air quality. That's in law. That's not just a sort of political choice. And of course, ULEZ schemes were first introduced by a Tory mayor. So this isn't just, I think there's an element in this is being played as sort of purely party political issue in an important by-election. But it's not quite as straightforward as that.
But it does, I mean, is there not room within that for any kind of help for people who can't actually afford it?
Oh, there is. And I think if you ask the mayor, he would say, if I could provide more help, if the government would provide the resources for it, then I'd happily do so. Because, I think we've all got to recognise the impact it does have, the financial impact. But pretending there isn't a sort of legal requirement to do something about air pollution is to have a conversation about this, which isn't actually within the right framework.
Okay. We heard from Just Stop Oil, the protest group, a little earlier in the programme. As you know, they disrupted 2 Wimbledon matches yesterday. They were already disrupted the Ashes. We spoke to them and we put to them, obviously, Labour's policy on this no new oil and gas fields. And they've said, we can't wait for a Labour government. We can't wait 2 years if that's what it's going to be. We need this to happen now. Do you want people who support Just Stop Oil to vote Labour?
Well, I can't wait for them to stop their antics, frankly. They're interrupting iconic sporting events that, part of our history, tradition, and massively look forward to across the nation. And this, I absolutely condemn the way they go about their tactics. And I have to say, it's riddled with an arrogance that only they have the sort of right to force their argument on other people in this way. Um, the single best way to ensure our economy thrives in the future and that we have clean, affordable energy is actually the election of a Labour government and the mission I set out on clean energy by 2030. But Just Stop Oil, as I say, the arrogance of what they do, the interruption of events which mean a lot to the nation. I can't wait for them to stop that.
But I wonder, are they more effective at getting their message across, actually, because of their modus operandi than politicians are?
No, I think they put more people off. I think that it is totally counterproductive. It's wrong. It shouldn't happen. The police have got the powers to deal with it. But this argument that you need more powers, you don't need more powers. You just need a government that makes it absolutely clear to the police that the powers they've got and get on and remove them.
Okay, Sir Keir Starmer, thank you very much for talking to us. That is Sir Keir Starmer. He is the Labour leader.